Welcome to it, sports fans. A different ball game with me, MKT. A great show today. We got the Sevens coach in the house, everybody. Cannot wait for our guest today. It is going to be a rather special edition of today's Skip Pass. I think that should be fun. So that's going to be cool. We got a real rugby player, because sometimes there's sevens players, there's 15s players. In his time, he was a precocious talent, for those who know South African rugby. And he's gone on to become an awesome coach from everything I've read. Cannot wait to get to our guest. But before that, I'll chat a little bit about Chelsea and what they'll look like next season, in my opinion. Who should go? Who should stay? And then Woude, as I said, will have, of course, a special guest in the Skip Pass today. But before we get to that, Woude, how are you today?
Hey, yes, I'm good. I'm very excited about the show today. We've got a great guest. Besides that, I had quite a productive day. I watched my curtain and hung them back up, and it's really hard work.
It sounds tough. Sounds like you're having a rough ride there. But you got through it, did you?
I got through it, and here I am, and ready for a great show.
Oh, what a brave soul. Got the curtains washed and hung them up. Good for you, Woude. These are the troubles. These are the troubles. All right, well, let's have a great show. I'm really looking forward to our guest a little bit later, but let's get straight into it. So last season, the Blues from West London had absolutely no money to spend. There was some misdemeanor, let's call it. Poor behavior, signing players when they shouldn't have, at ages they shouldn't have, and international dealings that shouldn't have happened in the way they happened. Fair enough. You get your transfer ban and you think, oh no. Everybody else breaks the world record for a centre-back, breaks the world record for Pogba. Everybody at Man City, they go and add to a double title-winning team. They go and add the previous player of the season in Riyad Mahrez. You think, oh, this is going to be a nightmare. Frank Lampard, Chelsea 2-0 up as we speak. They go to third place above Leicester. And it looks like they'll secure fourth place should they win the next 2 or 3 games. So it is a miracle season on that front. They spent £0. Kovacic's deal, I mean, he was already there. So it's been quite incredible from Lampard. But now we know how Roman Abramovich rolls. He's not here to give a guy 5-6 seasons. Doesn't matter how much he loves you. Roberto Di Matteo found out very quickly after winning the Champions League that winning the Champions League, even big years, isn't enough. So I want to take a look at what do Chelsea need to look like next season, because the screw's going to be turned on Frank. Next season, it's top 2, top 3. The following season, it's win the league. And I think next season, he's probably ahead of his curve. He may need to win a trophy. League Cup, FA Cup, something. But anything outside top 3, he's going to be having an awkward conversation with the Iron Lady, Marina. So I want to take a look at the Chelsea squad. And I'll tell you who I think should stay and who I think should go, and I will tell you why. So let's go through the full list, and I'll start at the goalkeepers. Chelsea's big challenge is size. It's quite simple. It is size. They are too small. Think of when Chelsea have won the Premier League. They've been number 1, physically intimidating. It's a power game. Even with Pep's side, it's a power game. It's about mobility. But we've seen it with Chelsea. What's the weakness? Set pieces. They have no size. And the problem starts at Kepa Arrizabalaga. First of all, I don't understand why they nearly broke the world record for him, because his feet aren't that good. But then he's also the size of Peter Dinklage at keeper. I'm sorry. I've always said this. Anybody below 190, I'm not interested in you as a goalkeeper. I don't care how good your feet are. Anybody less than 190, and for me, I prefer 192 and taller, but if you're under 190 as a goalkeeper, I have no interest in you. I'll tell you why, is you can't save it in the very top corner. Pepe for Arsenal scored against Brighton, against the Australian Taylor, who's the keeper for Brighton. That ball's nowhere near the corner. Kepa Arrizabalaga should have saved Kevin De Bruyne's free kick 2 weeks ago. Couldn't get there. Why? tiny little arms. He's got tiny little arms. Like Peter Dinklage. You don't know who that is? I don't know if midget's the correct word, but he's the midget from Game of Thrones and other shows. That's Kepa Arrizabalaga. Tiny little arms, because he's a tiny little man. If you're a goalkeeper, 190. Kepa, go, you're out. Caballero, he stays. He's the backup. And from everything I've read, he's a leadership figure within the dressing room. So I keep him. Let's move on to the defenders. But Kepa's got to go. Like, that's clear. Kepa, I'm out. Too many mistakes. And we saw the debacle. We saw the debacle last season when he thought he was the manager. With the defenders, it's a little bit tricky. So Rudiger, stay. Size, leadership, winner's mentality, of course, in that German team. Marcus Alonso, there's a question mark there for me, but he has to stay because he's the lesser of two evils. So he's the backup at left back next season. Kurt Zuma, he must stay. Young, he's physically imposing. The pace is freakish. We just got to iron out those mistakes. But I think you can bring him off the bench, rotate him in, League Cup, FA Cup, those dead rubber Champions League games. You groom him. Here's the problem one. I've always said the most important person at a club is the captain. What's really important is the captain should be good enough to be in the starting lineup. Chelsea are in a dilemma. Their captain, who is their best captain, Feda Azpilicueta, isn't good enough to be in the lineup anymore. But I'd keep him to be in the rotation. He's a leadership figure, and there's a young core coming through. I would keep him because he can still do a job for you at right and left back. He's fit as anything, but he's lost that pace. So, Cesar Azpilicueta, you stay. Fikai Tomori, I think he's the future. He stays. Christensen, a class Rolls-Royce centre-back. He stays. Emerson Palmieri, he's got to go. Can't defend, doesn't give you enough of an end product as a left back, left wing back. Gots to go. He has been so underwhelming. What he did at Roma was phenomenal, but he's done. Reece James, he's our right back next season. He's ready, and he's got his man body. 19, 20, got the man body in. He can also play holding mid. Tremendous early delivery. Some of the best delivery in the Premier League. Everybody keeps talking about Trent Alexander-Arnold. If you haven't seen Reece James' delivery, I think De Bruyne has got the best delivery in the league. But Reece James delivers early, looks for his forwards and wingers early. I think him and Loftus-Cheek next season, deadly combination from out wide. Let's move on to the midfielders. Jorginho, I think, has been awful, and I'm not a fan. I'll tell you why. Is in the Premier League, I don't care how good you are at ball retention, even Paul Scholes, right? Then what you need is two midfielders with Jorginho. And Chelsea's system is fluid. It's two number 8s and a 6. And he can't play the number 8 role because he can't catch up with play. Jorginho, get out of here. He's not good enough. He's not valuable enough with the ball at his feet as much as he likes to sort of conduct the tempo to be in the team. Jorginho, you got to go. Conte, best holding mid in the world. He stays. Barkley, go. He holds up the play. He's a bottleneck. I'm having no more of it. Pedro's already gone. He's been a great servant for the club. Ruben Loftus-Cheek, a little bit of size in the team and part of the future, another one of their Chelsea core. He stays. Kovacic, beautiful dribbling skills. He stays in the midfield, gives you that rigidity in midfield. Tremendous temper control as well. Kovacic stays. Hudson-Odoi, he's the future. On the right, he is the future. Now, the American Mustang, Christian Pulisic, is here a year early, really. I think he scored a goal already tonight, but he's been Chelsea's player of the season. He may get double figures in the Premier League. And remember, he got that abdominal injury. He is going to win 450,000 penalties in the next, 5 seasons. He's unbelievable. Left, right. Eden Hazard there's an Eden Hazard in there somewhere. He's more direct than Hazard, probably has more pace than Hazard. But my goodness, this young American has burst back onto the scene. He will be Chelsea's star player next season. There is no doubt of that. Billy Gilmore, the new Paul Scholes. Controls midfield, still young, needs to grow into a man body. He stays. Lampard will build around him, and he'll be the deep-lying playmaker. Very, very smart. Does the good things well, turns the ball around the corner, passes it between what you call the channels beautifully. Much like Paul Scholes, one-touch release. And he really, what you love is he gets it to the attackers quickly. That will allow people like Mason Mount, people like Willian to get into attacking positions. Now, Willian, there's a question mark. He's 31 now. He's looking for a 3-year deal. No dice. No dice. He's been brilliant, but if he wants that, he's got to go. For me, I like the New England Patriots approach in NFL football. Bill Belichick has a rule. Alex Ferguson had a rule. Sell the player a year early and let him punish you for 1 year at another club if he's still got some juice in him. Don't let him rot on your yard. Always let the player go a year early. That's what you always got to do. That's the rule. Willian wants a 3-year deal. We'll give you 2 at the same contract. Otherwise, you got to go. Love Willian. Tremendous servant. He's probably Chelsea's. I said Pulisic, but Willian's been our guy this season. 3 years. Terrific going forward. Can't defend. But I think what's great about him, he's got that athleticism and his end product is sensational. Lampard might be wanting that front foot type of wing back. He'll give you that. Mason Mount, best centre mid Chelsea have had this season. He has been incredible. I think Lampard likes him. He's spoken about how fit he is. He's really so versatile, this Mason Mount. He's everywhere. He's a mini Lampard. He gets in the box. He shoots off the left and the right. Tremendous 20-year-old player there. Conte, best CDM in the league. Then you got Loftus-Cheek. I would start Loftus-Cheek for this reason. Size. Because you look at that team again. Mount, Conte, tiny. Tiny. But then this is where they'll do the damage. Ziyech has already signed, and he's one of the best attacking mids come wingers in Europe. This is going to be a scary front three. The American Mustang on the left, Christian Pulisic, as they say. Ziyech, Pulisic, and then Turbo Timo up front. Turbo Timo up front, Pulisic on the left, Ziyech on the right. That's a super team. But on the bench, you'll see Hudson-Odoi can come on and do damage. And then the third name over from Zuma, Havertz, young 21-year-old German international, who is a monster. He's around 190, and he's got that Michael Ballack feel about him. Tremendous pace, breaking late from 10. And he's my guy off the bench. And by next season, if Mason Mount isn't working, then you've got Loftus-Cheek and Havertz causing havoc, really. From midfield, 2 big guys, both comfortable with the ball at their feet, both going to break in the box late. So that's my team for next season. If you're a Chelsea fan, I'd love to know. What do you think? Chilwell, Rudiger, Christensen, James across the back. Mount, Conte, Loftus-Cheek, Ziyech, Pulisic, Turbo Timo up front. Chelsea need to come in the top 3 next season, otherwise Frank's in trouble. That is the team. And I think they'll invest a little bit more, but the left-back situation is a concern, and the goalkeeper situation is an even bigger concern. If you're not 190, don't want to see you in the Chelsea goals. If you're a Chelsea fan, let me know. If you're a Chelsea fan, let me know. I'd love to know. What do you think of that lineup? I'm really, really excited about that Chelsea team. I think they can push City. They can push Liverpool next season. I think Liverpool will come back quite. Story for a different episode. Hey, I told you today we have an incredible guest, by the way. We have an incredible guest. So today, the skip pass is going to be special. So I'm going to introduce our guest, and he'll be on live with Woude Muller following this. So ladies and gentlemen, let me introduce our guest to you, ladies and gentlemen, hailing the rugby factory that is Sax, Cape Town. He was captain probably at his house. He was an offset captain of the Tables. He was a precocious talent in Cape Town. Ladies and gentlemen, it is my absolute honor to introduce to the precocious talent of the year, of talent like we've never seen before in this country. Ladies and gentlemen, Paul.
It's been a bit funnier. Sorry.
Paul, I think if you had an introduction like that before you ran onto the rugby field, it would be a completely different story. It would be like the New Zealanders doing the haka. You'd be so pumped up. So
I might still be playing, buddy.
I think we should hire Mbulelo out to do introductions like this before any sporting event or any rugby match.
Absolutely. I reckon you could take Bruce Buffer's job. I reckon the UFC, he could be the next big name there.
I'm gonna put it out there. We can make some money off this. We can chat after the show. But listen, thank you very much for spending some time with us. I know you've got a 1-year-old at home.
Yes, yeah, so it's a massive pleasure.
Yeah, I think that must obviously keep you quite busy. My brother's having another little one next week, so I can just imagine how these things how this works out. But obviously it's very special being a dad, and it's a very proud moment in your life. But you have had quite some like pretty cool moments in your 11 years of playing professional rugby. I mean, you were captain Sachs, you captained the SA schools team in 2002. You were part of the teams that won 2003 and 2005 world titles under 19, under 21 respectively. Played for Western Province Stormers, and that was just your 15th career. I think you made your 7th debut 2003, and then you switched kind of over to 7th. So what were your highlights of that, your 15th career, and what made you decide to move over to 7th after that? Or in between all of that?
I think you highlighted everything there. I think you've done my job for me. Yeah, definitely. I must say, probably biggest, or to start off with, I mean, definitely winning the under 19 and under 21 World Cups. It's always good to do that when you're young, and I think it just puts you on the front foot. As a young guy, I know it's gone back to under 20 rugby now, and we were lucky to have that under 19 and under 21. But when you graduate from there, it's still a big bad world. You're joining the big boys, and it's nice to have gained a bit of confidence out of there. But I must say, a fantastic experience for me was joining the Cats under Tim Lane and Chester Williams in 2004, and I'll never forget walking into that change room. Or actually into the first team meeting, and it was guys like Osterrand, Narkodrotsky. My roommate was Marius Herter, that played in the 95 World Cup final. I mean, he's an absolute legend. And I mean, just some of those guys as a 19-year-old kid, to be able to play with guys like that and to learn from them, Andre Pretorius, Wayne Julies, Conrad Yankees, Jacques Fourie, Juan Smith, Vickers van Heerden was the captain, so it was a surreal experience for me.
Sure. So you left the Cats to go play for Western Province and for Stormers, and I think that must also have been an incredible move, playing in Cape Town, back in Cape Town where you grew up. And who did you play with when you came to the Stormers?
Yeah, it was also an incredible experience. I think growing up in Cape Town, obviously being a Sax boy, the Newton Stadium was just down the road, and
you just had to say that, didn't you? Just had to say that.
Oh, absolutely. At least I must say we're definitely not as bad as the Grey boys. They won't say the Grey Bloom guys. How do you know someone went to Grey Bloom? They'll tell you. You don't have to worry about it.
Oh no.
But yes, I must say to have played 2004, started playing for Province, and that was fantastic. It was under Carl Duplessis, and he's just an amazing human being. He was all about giving the guys freedom, and it was really nice because there were so many Boks who played for Province at that stage, so all the youngsters got a bit of a chance. And then when the Springboks came back, it was fantastic as well. So I'll never forget. I think we played the Pumas in Bitbank, and Joe van Niekerk was the 8th man. The centre pairing was the Vet Barry and Mario Joubert. Brayton Paulson was the one wing. So it was, I mean, again, for a kid, just as an experience, you learn so much from guys like that. And again, I think it helped me a lot because they were heroes of mine, and just to see how they brought everybody into the fray, and they treated everybody the same. I mean, Corne Kruger was the captain. I mean, I'll never forget Corne's last game for Province. We played against Griquas at Newlands, and I was lucky enough to give him the last pass when he kicked the drop goal. I mean, Corne is still one of my heroes, so I just think that's what rugby gives you. It's just incredible experiences that you'll never
and
forget.
those memories, absolutely. And but correct me if I'm wrong. So I remember you playing, and you were this up and coming player, and then you kind of almost disappeared off the scene. And then what I found out now is that you're actually quite sick, and you were diagnosed with some terrible disease and meningitis and glandular fever and all sorts of things. And how did you cope with it? Tell me a little bit more about that. I think it was 2006. And because I didn't know that.
Yeah, very. So it was just a bit of silliness on my part. Neil de Kock ended up getting a contract at Saracens, so he left, and it was just kind of Bola Conradi and myself. So I was really pushing hard and being a bit silly with regards to the training. So it was really big lessons learned there in terms of overtraining. So I ended up, I mean, it's a pretty innocuous, it's just a virus. I had Epstein-Barr virus, but if your immune system is really compromised, it can hit you quite hard. So I ended up with encephalitis, meningitis, kidney failure, and viral hepatitis. So it was a really nice mixture that put me out for quite a while. So I ended up in hospital for about a month.
Oh my gosh. But then, so it sounded like doctors almost said to you, like, listen, you have to change the way which you're training or you won't be able to play rugby again. But then you being you decided no. And then 9 months later, you were in the 7th team and you helped win their first title. And you were captain of that team. I think that was 2008? Where you helped them. Was that the 7s in George? I think it was the first time it was here.
Yes, that was the first time we'd actually won our home 7s tournament. You know, we'd been trying for years. We played in quite a few finals and semi-finals. But it was just an incredible experience. I mean, again, I must say, I mean, my doctor, Prof. Wendy Spearman, was incredible. It was tough. I think the hardest thing coming out of that was I wasn't allowed to drink for 2 years. You know, as someone who enjoyed a pot, I always enjoyed my beer and my wine. But I think it must have helped quite a bit in terms of the return to play. So I mean, I joined the 7th team in 2008. I think it was just a bit of I had a bit of an existential crisis. You know, my younger brother passed away. I wasn't really enjoying my time at Province. You know, the coaches at that time didn't really rate me, and I actually quit rugby for a bit, and I was just lucky enough to be picked up by Paul True. You know, 7s was always something that I loved, and you know, he's such an incredible human being. He gave me an opportunity. He said his exact words were actually just come and train and see whether you want to play again. And I just enjoyed the environment so much that it was something that I took on.
Well, obviously so much because you became captain that year, and Sticks was the captain the year before. So you kind of would have expected him to be the captain for the next season because they did quite well the year before also. And then you became captain. Why did Paul do that? How did you take that and that extra pressure that's on top of you now that you're also captain for a side like that?
Yeah, actually, I think it was something that Paul True did incredibly well. He always built up leaders within the team. So if we think about it, I mean, Neil Powell was the captain in 2008, and unfortunately Neil broke his arm in one of the warm-up tournaments just before we left for Dubai, and then Sticky took over, and we also had Sticky and Paul Mbiyozo were actually the joint captains, which was fantastic. And already there we had a bit of a leadership group, you know, here Aplon and Rainer Benjamin and a few other guys, and you know, the next season Paul kind of chatted to me and he chatted to Sticky and he said, you know, let's change it up. I think there were so many good leaders in the team. And it was great. I mean, I can remember it was in Singapore. We were playing a warm-up tournament, and Paul had a chat to me, and I said to him, "Listen, I just want to chat to Sticky first and see how he feels." And Sticky and I had a coffee, and he was happy with it. And it was great. You know, the following year, the same thing happened. You know, it was then Carl Brown's chance, and when Carl and I had a chat, I said that's absolutely fantastic. The more people that have had leadership experience and have had experience captaining a team, it just stands the team in good stead. The more leaders you have, the better.
Yeah, but Paul seems to have really did a great job with the players because a lot of the players ended up being coaches for different teams. So he obviously didn't just want to create a player on the field. He was thinking about what is going to happen when you're off the field. Because I think Sticks obviously was part of the 2019 winning World Cup.
Yeah.
Neil Powell is their 7th. I think Jonathan McQuena was the picker coach. So, and a lot of other guys also. And then obviously you also being a coach. So Paul True must have been absolutely incredible with this. And just what have you learned from him being a coach now that you're implementing in your coaching career?
Yeah, definitely, buddy. I think the biggest thing we learned from Paul was just obviously taking the holistic approach. I think when you play professional rugby, there's so much effort put into just the rugby side of things, and I think you also become quite selfish because it's about making it, it's about getting a better contract, it's about getting sponsorships and this and that. And Paul really taught us to be students of the game, and he also taught us about contributing. You can't just be a good rugby player. You've got to contribute in other ways, and it's just testament to what he did. I mean, those names you mentioned are fantastic. Then you take Renfred Dazel, who's now the assistant coach of the national sevens team with Neil. You take Mario Skuman, who's the HP Sevens manager. You take Mpho Mbiozo, who's now coaching in New Zealand. He's actually coaching. We've actually done quite a bit of work with the Crusaders. So, I mean, absolutely brilliant. And I think just a lesson that I ended up learning from Paul and I've taken into my coaching career is that Paul True was such an incredible person that he really didn't care how you felt about him. His job was to make you better as a person and as a player. And if sometimes he had to do things that wouldn't make him popular, he was willing to do it. And for me, that's just so selfless. I think all of us go through life, and you don't want to step on toes. You want to be liked. And Paul couldn't be bothered about that. He just wanted to make Springbok Sevens rugby better. He wanted to make the people who were part of his life better, and he strived every day to do that.
Well, I think that is a big thing in South African rugby at the moment. Is a lot of the times, and I think Rassie's doing the same thing, is you pick the guys who are right for the team, not necessarily the best guys. And the coaches that have done really well in South African history are people that didn't really care if they liked or not. So it's great to actually to get that through, and people don't realize what a big impact that has on the game and in future. And talking about the future, so last week, World Rugby announced that all future games of World Sevens are now cancelled. So the New Zealand men's and women's teams were crowned the winners of the shortened season. Now, I think for the men's side, this is a real pity, as they were only 11 points behind the New Zealand team, and they still had 5 tournaments to go. So there was a very big chance for them to be able to get us points back and in the end still win the series. But in saying that, I think New Zealand were pretty consistent. They won 3 out of 6 tournaments, 2 podiums for the other ones, where the Springboks were quite inconsistent and very up and down. They won 2, then they finished 4th in Vancouver and 10th in Hamilton with the worst finish ever. So, I mean, that up and down has been something that's been involved in South African or Springbok Sevens for a long time. Why do you think that is happening, and how do you cope with that? Winning the one weekend and then the next weekend you lose. How do you motivate yourself again to get back to the top?
Yeah, in sevens, Woude, that's pretty easy because you have 3 games a day, and it's pretty simple. Sevens, at the moment, if you look at it, when I was playing sevens, there were maybe 4 or 5 teams that could win a tournament. Now there are 10. So you really have to be on top of your game. And I think, massive congratulations to the New Zealand men and women. They've definitely been the most consistent things. But I think what Neil and Renfred and Morris and the men's management did was they were obviously preparing for the Olympics. And, we got guys like Roscoe and Dylan and all the guys back in to obviously play the first 2 tournaments because that's when they were available before Super Rugby. So obviously the team wasn't as settled as we would have liked. Going into Sydney and Wellington, I think we went into those tournaments with 6 or 7 changes. So I think it was always just about giving the guys enough opportunity and just trying out new combinations and things so the guys would be peaking by the Olympics. And again, I think Neil's done an incredible job in just giving guys an opportunity and just building our squad.
So talking about now the Olympics, and obviously the shortened season and the cancellation of things is impacting the fact that the Olympics now moves to next year. So a lot of the senior players have now kind of retired. You can mention South Africa. So do you think we still have enough depth in our Springbok system and in our Sevens system? Are there enough youngsters coming through? Because if I think of Sevens, I mean, I think of the names of Kyle Brown and Philip Snyman, Branko and Frankie and like you don't really know the names of these youngsters. So who are the youngsters that are coming through, and are they on that kind of level? Will they be able to take the Springboks to win the Olympics?
Yes, I think absolutely. Those names you mentioned, absolute legends. And again, I mean, just Sissel Africa, Mr. Sevens. I think what he's done for Sevens rugby, World Sevens rugby, is invaluable. No one will ever get it, and I have no doubt that Sissel will be in the Sevens Rugby Hall of Fame very, very soon. But yes, I mean, absolutely. The new guys coming through, I mean, you look at we call them the triple threat match, the Davids. I mean, you just look at the impact they've made. And you look at how quickly the guys have developed. I mean, I think Shakes or Sibiwe Soizwapi, that's another guy that's come through the leadership system. You have guys like Justin Fiddle, you still have Branko Dupree there. You have Roscoe, you have Dylan and the guys on the fringes. So I mean, Chris Dry is an absolute legend. So I mean, I always like to laugh in the background. I only have a squad of 14 very talented ladies and a couple of fringe players. I mean, I'll often walk past Neil's office and say, I don't know how you're going to pick the team, but maybe you should just pick, because I don't know how you do it. There's so much talent, buddy.
That's
and again,
brilliant.
it's just going to come down to combinations, and form. And I think the biggest challenge for the main team will just be ensuring that the guys get enough game time, and then just get enough game time in those combinations so we know exactly what we're going to go to the Olympics with.
And a lot of these names that you mentioned now were players that actually came through the Sevens Academy, and you were involved in the Sevens Academy for a while. So you definitely think that obviously the Academy and what you guys have been doing there is working so well to get these players through and get them settled into the senior team. So how does it work at the Academy? What do you guys do?
Yeah, absolutely. It was something great. It was something that Paul True and Paul True always wanted, and then Neil and Marius got it right. And it was really just an incredible experience to start my coaching career with that system. And I think what's done very well is, firstly, Marius is an absolute genius when it comes to scouting. So he really gets the right people and the right players involved. And then secondly, it's kind of sink or swim, and the guys are really they really put through their paces, and I think the best way to learn how to play sevens is to play with the best people in the world. And some of those names you mentioned that only retired last year, you look at, I mean, Sissel retired now, but you look at Sissel, you look at Philip, you look at Kyle, you look at Frankie. I mean, those are the best people to learn from. I mean, that's how quickly people learn. And again, it was a big thing that's always been part of the seven system, is that you really help the new people coming in. It doesn't matter if they play in your position. And it was actually quite a funny conversation. I can remember Neil feeling quite bad about not giving me a new contract. And I said to him, I kind of had a laugh, and I said, well, Neil, as much as I back myself, the guys in my position, let me name them for you. It's Sissel, it's Branko, it's Justin Geduld, it's Cheslin Colby, and then Mark Richards is still playing. I mean, he's a Commonwealth Games gold medalist. So I said to him, don't feel bad, those are the people coming through. And Kyle and Philip would say the same. I mean, Kyle's understudy was Kwagga Smith, Now old JC Pretorius is coming through. So you just look at the factory. It's a proper factory. Yeah. The guys just come through, and they are incredible players.
You mentioned Cheslin now. If you were in his position, what would you do next year? Because obviously he was supposed to play the Olympics this year and the British and Irish Lions tour next year. So he would have had this perfect career, winning the World Cup, hopefully winning the Olympics, and then the British and Irish Lions tour. And now he has to make a choice of what he's going to play, which is not, I mean, what a player would want.
Yeah, it's going to be tough, Ernie. Absolutely. I mean, I think, obviously being biased towards the sevens, I really hope Cheslin chooses us. But I think for him, he did play at the Olympics in Rio in 2016. The Lions Tour is something that only happens once in a lifetime if you're lucky. So I think it's going to be a hell of a big decision for him. But the Lions Tour is definitely not something you can miss out on.
Yeah, no, definitely. But you now are the coach of the Umbokodo, am I saying it correctly? The
Yes,
Springbok
yeah.
women's sevens team. I practiced in front of the mirror today to say it properly. But the Springbok women's team, and you played in Cape Town tournament last year. It was the first time that women played with the men in a tournament. I think that must have been, how was that experience? And from the women's, obviously you've played in these before, but now from a coaching perspective and taking a team into playing this and having to play your first match against New Zealand. How did you deal with that?
No, it was a phenomenal experience for all of us. We've said it's always been our goal to get back onto the World Series, and the only way we're going to get there is to play against the best teams. And what's been unfortunate for us over the last couple of years is we just haven't played enough high level tournaments where we can learn. Again, I alluded to it earlier. The only way you get better is to play against people that are better than you, to learn lessons and to improve quickly and to catch up as quickly as you can. So for us, it was absolutely fantastic. We said from the outset, what better learning curve for us than to play against the best team in the world? And it was brilliant. The ladies really stepped up. They did incredibly well. And I think for us coming there as outsiders, it was really good for us to finish 10th overall. So I mean, for us, you obviously go into the tournament with realistic goals, and for us that was one of our goals. Coming in as the invitational team, as the 12th ranked team, we didn't want to finish 12th. So massive kudos to the ladies, and I think it was massive for us going into the preparation for this year. Obviously, COVID stalled everything, but you could really see a difference just after the experience of playing against those quality teams on the circuit.
So if I wanted to, I mean, I'm old now, so it won't be me, but say if I wanted to start playing sevens rugby now, how do you pick players? Where do women go? And what would you say to a woman that's a bit scared, that really do want to play, but they're a bit scared to actually go to the trials and start playing rugby?
Yeah, but I mean, I'd say, so firstly, I'd say go and get involved in playing some 6-down touch. There are leagues everywhere. Just so you get used to kind of being on a field, being surrounded by people. We always say, I mean, we've kind of gone the way of the top teams in the rest of the world, and that's kind of Australia, New Zealand, France, USA, Canada. They went to crossover sports about 10 years ago. So they've been looking at, athletes, hockey players, soccer players, netball players, basketball players. I think physiologically, the move into rugby isn't as bad because the movement patterns are very much the same in those sports. You obviously just adding a bit more contact, whereas people coming from, and we've got a couple of ladies from athletics, from rowing, the time it takes to get you conditioned for rugby when you're coming from those linear training patterns are quite tough. But again, in saying that, there's more than enough athletic talent in South Africa, and I mean, my missus always laughs at me. I'm a bit of a trawler. She says I'm a bit of a weirdo because I spend my time at athletics meetings. I go to CrossFit events. I go to netball matches, basketball matches, soccer matches, just to look for ladies that are athletic enough, who want to do it. And then obviously, Woude, sorry, I've gone a bit of points, but definitely 6-down touch. And then what the universities have done very well is they've got women's sevens rugby up and running. I mean, Tips have a fantastic program. Marties have a great program. I mean, Johan Zay is doing great work there. Rian van Vesta is doing great work up at Tips. UJ are doing really good things. So everybody's really getting on board and just trying to create opportunities for talented sportswomen.
But what is South African rugby or SARU doing for women's rugby in general in South Africa? Because even for sevens in South Africa, they're not doing that much. I mean, sevens is quite low on their list, if you look at that. So what are they actually, is Rassie putting more time and energy and money into sevens one and then into women's rugby and women's sevens?
Yeah, definitely. I think much more energy into women's rugby in general. It's been a bit of a fight, but really
Yeah.
I can see the difference. They've Saru in general, they've really made big strides into taking women's rugby more seriously, and I think especially heading into the 15th World Cup next year, which is going to be brilliant. That's going to be, I think it's August, September. It's going to be in New Zealand. That they're really putting a lot of effort into giving Stanley Robenheimer, who's the 15th coach, a lot of ammunition. But I think for us, Woude, I think the biggest thing for us is we just need to make women's rugby and I say girls rugby a bit more mainstream. So firstly, it's something that I've been chatting about for years. I think boys and girls should play together until under 11. For me, physiologically, before we go into puberty, there's no difference for me. Let them play, and if there is a problem, do what our parents had to do. You play in weight categories. That's what I absolutely love. I mean, I still feel, I think Craven Week under 13 is a massive waste of time, because you have a kid who's gone into puberty, weighs 120, and you have a kid who weighs 30 kilograms. And so it's a waste of time. So let everybody play together until they start going into puberty. So you just develop a skill set, and then the ladies can choose, or the girls can choose, whether they want to play contact rugby. And I think the biggest thing for us is we need to build. At the moment, we try and build from the top down. So, we've got a decent budget and we're trying to develop players, but there's nobody coming through. We're always starting at zero. I'm bringing an athlete in and trying to teach how to play rugby. Whereas, you look at me as a boy, I started playing rugby when I was 5. So, it's completely different. And if we can just break those, I'm going to say those conservative thought processes that we still have in this country, because we're very conservative. As much as we like to think we're not, we are as backward as we come in a lot of ways. If we could just make women's rugby more mainstream and just make it more, I think, just more of an attractive option, we'd have more talented sportswomen playing the game.
Well, I can tell you a story. So when I was growing up, we lived across the road from the church, but that was basically our playground. And I used to play rugby with the boys at that stage. And then I got banned from playing with them because I was too fast for them. And they told me I'm not allowed to play with them anymore, because they would just pass the ball to me on wing and I would just run past everyone. So for exactly those 2 years that you're talking about before puberty, they banned me from playing with them. They were like 10 boys in the neighborhood, and they said, no, you're not allowed to play anymore. So I always just had to sit and watch. See, boys also need to change their mind.
You probably broke those guys. I reckon those guys also stopped playing rugby.
Oh my gosh. But anyway, so now the whole COVID situation, we were talking about the men's rugby before and how it impacted the men's sevens, but it's also impacted you guys, because you are obviously now working to get to the core teams of the World Series, because at the moment there was going to be the Challenge Series in Stellenbosch in March, if I'm not mistaken. So that would have been an opportunity for relegation or for promotion. And then you could become part of the core team. So the core teams basically, if I understand correctly, those are the 11 teams that are part of all the events that the women host.
Yeah.
If you're not part of that, you have to get invited to a certain event. So you were working towards that, and obviously finishing 10th in Cape Town, you were working yourself up to becoming part of those teams. And this has now kind of hampered that whole situation. So you're back to the drawing board. What are you going to change now for next season to work to get towards that?
Yeah, it was massively disappointing for us as a system. I think we were very lucky, as we chatted about earlier, to have played in Cape Town, and to just have gained that top flight international experience, and also we were so looking forward to it, because the Challenger Series tournament was going to be in Stellenbosch, which is just around the corner from SAS, where we are based, and we also did things a bit differently this year. But we started working on the tactical periodization. We actually had a theme for each day, so it was very planned out. The ladies knew exactly what we were working for. Our S&C Sandile Sebeko was phenomenal. I mean, he had done the periodization down to a T. We were going to peak at the tournament. We played a warm-up tournament in Hermanus against a couple of club teams and provincial teams where the ladies did very well. So it was a very tough pill to swallow. But I think for us, we've done good work. We'll obviously take take a look at what we can do better for next. Essentially, the sad thing for our system is this puts us back 2 years. It doesn't just put us back 1 year. We had wanted to qualify for the series this year. We would have, if we had qualified, we would have started playing in October on the World Series, and now we don't have a date yet for the Challenger Series next year, but it'll probably be around the same time, March, April, and then we're only going to be playing on the series in 2022. So it essentially puts us back, but I think we've got a very talented group of 14 contracted ladies and a bit of a greater squad, and we just keen to get back to it at some point.
I can imagine. Well, good luck with that, because I can't imagine being a coach. It must be a really, really difficult job. And especially, I think, working with women, I'm sure that brings its own challenges with it. So, rather you than me.
Yeah, no, definitely. I'm glad you guys can't see all my grey hairs. But I always say it's interesting when I chat to male coaches about ladies. I say, well, firstly, you guys function with a 5 terabyte hard drive. We function with a 1 terabyte hard drive. So it is tough. You guys are way smarter than us. And then the analogy I always use is, if you tell a guy in the simplest form, go and run to that wall, touch it and come back. The homie's gone, he'll come back. If you ask a woman to do it, you say, do you want me to change my shoes? Do you want me to sprint? Do you want me to touch with both hands? Do you want me to skip along? How exactly do you want me to do it? So I think as a coach, Woude, I must say it's been a fantastic experience, because you obviously learn how to coach differently, and it takes you out of your comfort zone. And I always say to the ladies, they think I'm a bit crazy. I've tried to flip the script. I work for them. They don't work for me. It's my job to upskill them. It's my job to make them better. And we really work on an open system. I don't want to work with sycophants. I don't want to work with people that just say yes and never challenge me and never challenge themselves. And I think we've got a really fantastic management and a really fantastic group of ladies that can take women's sevens rugby forward.
Oh, that's awesome. That is awesome. That is so cool. Hey, Paul, that is out of this world, by the way, some of the work you're doing. And I do agree with you. I think you raised a great point about how conservative we are in this country. And it must be a huge challenge for somebody like yourself who just wants to see this, let's let the show go on, We know what they're doing in New Zealand. We've seen what the English are doing. We've seen, even you look at the Polynesian nations, which is insane, because I'd imagine they've probably got a 10th of our budget, if that. And we've seen what their ladies are up to.
Yeah, absolutely. It is tough. But you look at what England have done. England have definitely taken it forward. They've got professional clubs now. Saracens and all the Harlequins and all the top clubs have paid female rugby players. So it's fully professional there now, which is absolutely fantastic. And you look at them, and I wouldn't want to play against England and France. You look at the Women's Six Nations. It's absolutely incredible, but I think it goes back to, I can't complain about our budget, in terms of the sevens team, but it is very, very difficult when you're working from the top down. There's very little coming through, and I think where we really need to garner more interest is just garner more interest, and I'm just talking about sevens specifically, because we have enough 15s, talented 15s players. The game of sevens has obviously marched on. It's all been about the rise of the athlete, and the vast majority of our ladies that play 15s are just not athletic enough to play sevens. It's just that simple. They're great rugby players. I think we'll do very, very well at the 15s World Cup next year, but the vast majority of them are just not athletic enough to compete physically in the sevens sphere.
And you say that it's probably quite interesting, for most of us who've grown up watching rugby, sevens in terms of a consumption thing is still quite new. So the idiosyncrasies, unless, I was fortunate to come up in an era when just as I was getting to the end of high school, we started playing sevens, and, we had your skin stats and guys like that would come in and coach us, and we had Mexteds, and so we kind of got educated in my 10th or third form, which is grade 10, about sevens. Yeah. But maybe you could explain to us, what is the difference between, okay, I play flank in 15 rugby, now I'm a sevens player. Like, what are the idiosyncratic differences? What do you have to be able to do on a sevens field that's not necessarily needed as a specialist in the 15s game? What are the extra bows you need in sort of your arsenal?
Geez, that is a great question. So I think to start off with, I always say if you want a player to develop their general skill sets, you let them play sevens, because in 15s, and you hit the nail on the head, your role is very defined. So you know what you are. So if you're a 6 flank or a 7 flank, you know that you're either going to be a ball carrier or you're going to compete. You know you might be a line-out option if you're tall enough, and you pretty much know what your role is. You know, however the team plays, you know the system, you know the patterns. Whereas sevens, you might be a loose-head prop, which is generally what flankers would come in and play, because we're looking for guys that are tall and mobile. You know, you might have a job in a lineup or a job in the scrum, but when it's open play, your role is the same as a wing. Your role is the same as a scrum off. Your role is the same as a fly off. So all those skills are necessary. You need to be able to pass both sides. You need to be able to have good aerial skills. You need to have feet. You need to have very good defensive capability. You need to be able to compete for the ball. So I think those idiosyncrasies, they really come in. Your role is a lot broader, and a lot more is expected of you as a sevens player when you play.
You spoke earlier of a tremendous guy, Paul True, and his leadership and what he's done. And Woude, I think, brilliantly mentioned the sort of, the catalog of guys that are now in leadership positions. What made him, so robust at the top? Because I can't imagine he had it easy. It's never easy to be. He was the first real guy, right? As in, we obviously had a couple of sevens coaches, but he was the guy who said, okay, we're not just participating in sevens, we're going to win. Was he just like different? What's he like as a man?
Yeah, Paul was definitely just different. We always say he just sees things the rest of us don't see. He picks up trends, and he's just an absolute genius of the game. I think a genius on many more levels as well. And that was the thing. Paul really fought a good fight, so that the rest of us didn't have to fight it. The first contracted group of sevens players was only 2008. Paul took over coaching in 2004, and it literally took him that long to kind of put his plan together and actually get it through. So very, very patient. Those of us that spent a lot of time with Paul, you wouldn't say patience is one of his virtues at the top of the list, because he was just. I just loved working with him. He pushed you every day, and it wasn't just on the field. It was mentally. I'd sometimes get home and be like, I don't know if he was screwing with me today. I don't know if he was complimenting me. I don't know if he was happy. I don't know if it was what. And I think all of us just, you kind of just wanted to grow, and you wanted to stay in the system. Listen,
to be fit enough to play sevens at the level you guys took it to, is that just, are you throwing up every day at practice? Is that just what you got to be like the Terminator in terms of fitness, your cardiovascular nature?
Yeah, fitness is absolutely next level. I can remember, and I'm sure you won't mind me saying it, he was a supremely talented kid, I can't remember his first name, Mjikevu, is it Wandisile? I think it's called Wandisile.
Oh,
Wandile, sorry.
Yep.
I'm thinking of Wandisile Simalane, yeah. So it's Wandile Mjikevu. And he was incredibly talented. So he made his Super Rugby debut, and Paul True brought him in. And I'll never forget, Wandile made 2 sessions, and then he asked Paul if he could go home. It just wasn't for him. And I can tell you a lot more stories of quite a few Springboks that came to camps with us, and they lasted a couple of days, and they just said, this is not for me. Let me go have a holiday at 15s.
Oh, wow. Like, are we talking about guys that have like 30 Springbok caps kind of thing?
We're talking about guys that have 50 Springbok caps.
Oh, you're joking. So it was, they couldn't handle the heat. They had to get out the sevens kitchen.
Yeah, I think it it was just different as well. It was sevens. You have to be a special kind of nutcase. It was a joke that Frankie Horn always used to say. We didn't call it the seven circuit, we call it the seven circus. You have to be a special type of nutcase to want to live like that, to want to put your body through that. And we just enjoyed it. And I think, what the beauty for me about sevens is I look at the guys recently that have come through. You look at the Cornel Hendricks, the Gea Aplons, the Quagga Smiths. When I went back to sevens in 2008, sevens was very much viewed as a bit of a place to go for guys that weren't good enough at 15. So you couldn't make it in 15s. You went to go play there. It was fun. You got to travel the world. No one really took it that seriously. And now you look at the players that are there. You look at the guys making their breakthroughs into 15s. You look at Roscoe Speckman, you look at Dylan Sage, you look at Quagga Smith, you look at Cheslin Colby, and there are so many more guys in our system that if they're given an opportunity, would literally set the field on fire in 15s.
Sure. Look, I'm sure some of our viewers will have questions about sevens. So I actually want to talk a little bit more about yourself. A lot of people forget what you were. I think tragically your career was curtailed by injury, and we'll talk about that a bit later. I think at about 30 you had to give up the chase. But a lot of people forget that when you were between 18 and 23, I don't think your name could stay out the paper, right? I heard about you at school, and there's this new guy coming. But something that's been interesting for me is I was fortunate enough to go to one of our boys' schools in this country, and then I did an exchange year in the United Kingdom at one of the most revered boys' schools in the world. And I realized something, is the pressure's different here. I was nowhere, I don't register on the Richter scale of you in terms of talent, but I played, first team rugby and all of that here, and the pressure's different. But what I realized about yourself and your sort of your CV is that you've been somebody who's been not just in the first team, not just in the A team, but you're at the leadership front. Talk to me about being at a boys' school in South Africa. I mean, the oldest boys' school in the country. What is that pressure cooker like? Because, Paul, you're a talented guy. So for you, it's just your life. You've probably had it your whole life. All you've known is pressure. But for most people, they don't understand that at 16, 17, you are under a melting pot. What was that like actually when you think back about it back then? What was it like to be Paul Delport at 16 and everyone said, that's the next guy?
Yeah, I think it was interesting. I must say my folks were incredible. I mean, they always kept my brother and I very grounded. They kind of just supported us through anything. And I think what was great about being at a boys' school, I think you can attest to this, is so you might have been the superstar at rugby, but you were forced to do other things. So I was forced to play water polo. I think I played 17 water polo. I couldn't even swim properly. I was hanging on the side. I played some cricket. I did some athletics. I played fourth team hockey or fifth team hockey. So I think in terms of that, it was a very good place just to stay grounded. And then also we had a fantastic principal in Gordon Law, and his take on it was schools for academics. So it didn't matter if you were the superstar. You still needed to graft. You still needed to do well in your academics. You needed to contribute. You needed to be involved. I mean, I was in the history society. I was in everything. You kind of had to do everything. And I think the great thing as well is that going to a boys' school, the guys that you're surrounded by, they chop you down. I've got pretty short legs, but they still used to chop my legs down quite often. So the guys never let you, even now, I mean, a lot of my best mates are guys that I went to school with, and they're the guys that make fun of me the most. But I think in terms of the pressure, it was something that was quite easy to deal with, because there's just always, I think when you're in a boys' school, there's just always so many personalities around you. And for me, I never really felt it. And in saying that, I actually really feel sorry for the kids nowadays, because I don't think for us it was that bad. Looking back at it now, it was great. You played at their schools, you did this, you did that, but there weren't really that many people chasing you. I mean, I can be honest. I didn't play at their schools,
captain. So So you're saying that like, yeah. So you're saying it like everyone did it, just so it's clear. I did not play SS schools. Yeah, not everybody was. Yeah. Just to make that clear.
But I mean, I can tell you, I think of guys like Andre Pollard and those guys. I mean, I was SS schools captain. I only got offered a contract from Western Province. No one was hunting me. No one was in my parents' living room saying, "Paulie, we'll give you a car. We'll do this. We'll do that." I mean, back in 2002, it was more about. I mean, my parents said to me, "You're not signing a contract if you don't get into university."
Wow.
They said, "You're not allowed to play rugby if you don't get into university." So that's what it was about. I think now it's very, very different. I think the pressure is really on the kids now. But I think there are also more options now. You know, the overseas clubs chasing our kids now. I mean, the French guys are at Craven Week every year, trying to get our top talent over there. So I think things really have changed. But I must say, just being in a boys' school, you know, you might captain a team, but you know, when you're captaining that team, there are 3 other guys that have captained teams, you know, at their junior school before they got there. And, you know, you might be the captain of the rugby team, but the captain of the cricket team and the water polo team in the same team as you. So there's always so many leaders around.
Sure. And what interests me is it seems like you were always chosen. There are no mistakes. One thing I know about having played sport is there are no mistakes, especially when it comes to leadership, especially at that level, you know, the level you reached. When you were 17, 18, because we all have places to choose, is some guys, I want to go have 10 beers. Some guys, they take it serious. And leaders take things serious from early. Now, that may be a character thing. That you may be lucky with genetics. You may, like you said, you got on with your principal. Maybe your parents were disciplined. But what is it for you that you said, you know what, there isn't a night out, like a night out, that feeling. There isn't a feeling like that that's as good as captaining the box, the baby box. Because we know, you and I could probably list 100 players that we saw and said that's the greatest thing to ever go. But he chose the nightclub. What was it for you? Did you ever have like a seminal moment, or was it always rugby for you? Or was it like, okay, the partying thing, I've seen where that goes. How did you decide to just be the guy?
Yeah, it was. I don't think I ever decided to be a big guy. I was very lucky to have a really supportive group of friends. You know, even when the guys were partying, I was always with. I just would go a little bit easier on the booze, or I'd leave a little bit earlier. And I actually never found it. I actually never found it that difficult. I mean, I think a lot of people don't know this about me now. And my missus still doesn't believe me, but I was a bit of a nerd at school. I was a bit of a shy guy. You know, everybody thought I was a jock. I really wasn't. I was a bit of a shy guy. Really shy of the ladies. You know, not great going to an all boys school.
Tough.
Was a bit shy there. But again, I mean, I can tell you, I've just been very lucky, and I think both of us can, you know, we can go to experience when we say this. I mean, I can remember going to a South African under-19 camp that started the day after our matric dance. And it was our matric dance, and obviously I'd had some fun and had a late night. And the coach of the under-19 team was a gentleman by the name of Eugene Elof, an absolute legend. And I got to the hotel, and he had found out that it was the matric dance the day before or the night before. And all he said to me was, "Paulie, I hope you had a great time. It happens once in your lifetime. Go and sleep it off. We'll hit it tomorrow." So I think just having people like that in your life that were so understanding, that understood you were a kid. You know, I've met a lot of coaches that would have sent me home, and then we wouldn't be sitting here right now having this conversation. So I think in terms of sport and in terms of life, sometimes you're just very lucky to run across just really incredible people that open doors for you.
That is absolutely amazing. I mean, I've known sportsmen who I was fortunate enough to play cricket with a guy called Keegan Africa, and he should have been Jacques Callis before Jacques Callis, right? And this guy was a different class, but unfortunately, it just never worked out for him, and he had some character stuff, and it just went by the wayside. You know, when I think of Cape Town, it's such a pressure cooker, especially at these schools. And you think of guys like Nick Costa. You know, it was almost like he was the president of Cape Town at a stage. I don't know if you remember what was being built up around him. I cannot imagine the type of pressure. I mean, he had to get out of there, right? Like, it was never, for him, there's no ways he could have honestly saved a baby falling out of a building, and it would never have been enough with those expectations that were built up for him. You know, I always wonder how you guys. Yeah, go ahead.
No, sorry. No, I just said that. Sorry to interrupt you there. No, he was just absolutely, he was supremely talented. But again, I think Nick was very unlucky in terms of, you know, he obviously went to Western Province and the Stormers, and remember he kind of went the same way as Pierce Spitz. Remember, they tried to make him into a wing, and then moved him back to 7, and then moved him to 8. You know, as a youngster coming through, and this is what people often forget. And I can say this because it happened to me as well. I was playing Super Rugby at 19. I shouldn't have been playing Super Rugby at 19. I wasn't good enough. I wasn't a good enough finished product. And even for us, I mean, you look at us conditioning wise. I ended up getting hurt. I think for Nick and the guys, it changed. It changed a lot. I mean, I can remember off season at school was do some push-ups and go for a jog. The first time I got into gym was probably June in matric. That's the first time I hit the gym. I'd never gone to gym before. And I just think it's tough because these kids come out of a good system, and you get thrust into this role where all of a sudden you must be a superstar, and you're playing against me. Look at Super Rugby. You might run out there and you're playing in Isaiah Gear or Rico Gear or one of those guys. Yeah, I mean, absolutely. And you're 19, 20 years old, and you're the golden boy, and you know you're gonna get bent in half the first time you run into contact. And then what does that do? Yeah. Whereas I actually really enjoyed, as much as I enjoyed playing senior rugby, I really enjoyed playing under 19, under 20, under 21. That's where you learn the game. That's where you learn the art of your position. You're playing against your peers. There's even more pressure there because those guys are out to get you. You know, when you leave there, it's a big bad world. From under 21, there are normally 5 guys that get senior contracts. You know, there are 40 of you in the squad. You know, you've got to perform. You've got to do the business.
So now tell me about this. You've raised an interesting argument, and this is something I've heard for years from ex-pros and something I've believed the whole time. By the way, took 5 years to do a degree, so you're talking to an idiot here. I failed 2 years. What you going to do?
5.5.
Hey, what? Yeah, but I mean, hey, you were busy winning junior World Cups for us. I was winning drinking World Cup. A slightly different. Please, let's not compare me being an idiot to you being a world champion. Please, let's not. Hey, don't come on here and give me that type of sympathy. You're a world champion. I was some clown getting face down at a nightclub. Let's not compare us. Please, let's not do that. But something I've always, and I'd like to know from somebody who's in this position, is I've always wondered why we haven't followed the American model. Now, of course, we don't have those types of resources, but our universities are relatively well funded. Yeah. Just because somebody's talented at the age of 19, it doesn't mean we know now neurologically, the science tells us between 29 and 31, neurologically, the male brain is then only fully formed. So why aren't we putting those, you have to be in university for 3 years? Right? You have to. You cannot declare for a union before 3 years of university or 3 years sitting out. So it's up to you, but you may not become a paid professional at 3 years without doing 3 years of either an apprenticeship or whatever it may be. You go and play for the police force, the army, whatever it may be, but you are doing something and it must be educational. What do you think of that?
You are preaching to the converted, and I'll take it a step further. I agree with you 100%. And you take it a step further, and I believe the only way we're going to save provincial rugby in South Africa is, and people think it's completely left field, we've got to do a state of origin like they do in Australia. So for your first 3 years, if you grew up in Ballgame, you stay there. If you go to university, you obviously have to go to Bloemfontein or you can go to Kimberley. But if you went to SAP, you will play for West UCT or you play for Western Province. If you went to Grey Bloem, you will play for Free State. If you went to Selborne, you will play for Border. If you went to Grey PE, you will play for PE. You will play for the Kings. And I agree with you wholeheartedly. We have to have people in university and studying. I mean, I can tell you how many guys. I mean, I'm also incredibly lucky to have been given the opportunity that I've been given. But every rugby player thinks they're going to be a commentator or a coach. You're not going to be a commentator or a coach. It happens to very few of us. and the guys are not pushed like they are in the States. And I think, I mean, there obviously lots of, there's always people ragging on the NCAA, and they say, they make all the money and the players should make more, and, this and that. But essentially, if you're a professional sports person, man or woman, your career is 10 years if you're lucky. We're all going to live till we're 100. Or that Sunlum advert says you're going to live till we're 140. So you really have to make plans for after rugby. And I mean, I don't know how you feel about it. I mean, I often think about it, and it's a story that I share with everybody because it still breaks my heart. I mean, the second contract I signed. So my old man is a professor of pediatric endocrinology. He's one of the most highly qualified people in the world. My second contract,
so he's not too smart.
I earn more than him. But my second contract I signed, I earn more than him. How?
Wow.
It doesn't make any sense. And then we wonder, I mean, and sorry, I'm bouncing on, but I go back to, I can remember a couple of years ago when they were chatting about, the whole Wayne Rooney incident, when he was cheating on his wife and this and that. Now, you take these kids, and, I think it's very different from us that we're fortunate enough to have gone to good schools, and, you taught this, and you taught life lessons, and, some of us came from really good families, but the kids that don't come from that background, all of a sudden they make it. Now you pay a kid 600,000 Rand a year, and you get upset with him for buying a Golf GTR that costs 500,000 Rand. It's not his fault. The guys are not educated, and nobody around them educates them. And I think for me that is a hell of a tough thing. You see these guys living large, and I mean it's a thing I often say to guys, and the guys at the office call me touch of Asperger's because I'm always stepping on people's toes. But if a kid today says to me, if I ask you what you do, and you say I'm a professional rugby player, and I say what do you earn, and you tell me you earn 10 grand a month, you're not a professional rugby player. You're not a professional rugby player. What are you going to do with 10 grand a month? You can't even pay your medical aid and your rent with 10 grand a month. You're not a professional rugby player. It's different. The guys that have made it is great, but you look at most of the guys that are playing Springboks, the guys are qualified. They have degrees. Bismarck Du Plessis has a BCom finance degree. His brother Yanni is a doctor. You look at these guys, and the guys are smart. They've looked after themselves and done the right things.
So, Paul, I mean, you've opened up a can of worms here. What are we going to do about this? Because we've just seen what I believe is the saddest. I think Josiah Tuwane, for those who don't know, obviously the first black man to win a marathon at the Olympics, 96, is one of the saddest stories in the country. But I think we've just seen probably the way it was framed. In Chili Boy Ralapela, we have now seen sort of the Shakespearean end of the tragic hero. And it speaks to what you're saying, because I know a little bit of his background, and we were in the same year at school and played a lot of sport against each other. So I do know what's happening in the background. Now, you've seen there where the talent's off the charts, but through no fault of his own, the character wasn't there. Now, that's not his fault. He was a child. He was a child thrown to the wolves alone. I'm not going to defend the character deficiencies. We all need to be responsible as people. But, when we set people up to fail and they fail, we mustn't act surprised. So we've seen what happens when you don't develop the person, you just develop the rugby player. Do you sense an appetite? And I don't want to just blame SA Rugby, because this is a sports problem globally. I don't care where you are, NFL, NBA, none of them are still quite good enough at it. Do you see an appetite for that? Or do you think with now it's about the bottom line? We're never going to get to a point where the person matters before the sportsman. No,
I definitely do see a shift. You look at the work that my players are doing. I mean, they are fantastic. They really, really are fantastic. They're really trying to look after the players' well-being. But again, and I'll probably get a lot of hate for this, but I can say it because I was one back in the day. I always used to say, you know what the dumbest thing in the world is? A professional rugby player. That's the dumbest thing in the world.
I agree more, except if you...
A young professional rugby player is the dumbest thing in the world. Don't tell them anything. Don't say anything. I mean, I was incredibly lucky because of my parents. I mean, people laughed at me when I did. I started my RA at 18. My first contract was 5 grand a month. I saved 2,000 of that 5,000 rand a month because my parents forced me to do it. I wouldn't have done it if they didn't force me to do it. I mean, my dad wouldn't let me live in res. I just stayed at home because he said, well, if you live in res, you're going to get pissed all the time with your mates. You're going to stay at home and you're going to train, and you're going to do your work, and you're going to, do this and that. But I definitely think, and again, it goes down to, Chili Boy was fantastic. I stand to be corrected, but I think Chili Boy was the youngest guy to ever play SS Schools, because I can remember my matric year, 2002. Chili Boy played SS Schools with us, and if I have it right, he was in grade 10 then. I think he was 15. 15 turning 16, or we were 16, and he was a prodigious talent. And still to this day, it's just a wonderful, wonderful human being. And I think for people that haven't been there, and Guy, if any rugby player disagrees with me, they're talking nonsense. We all considered using steroids because there's so much pressure. For me, it was quite an easy decision because my old man's an endocrinologist. He explained to me. He said, "Listen, this is the effect it's going to have on your body. If you want to do it, it's gonna destroy your body. You're gonna end up with liver problems, kidney problems, this and that." But I don't blame anybody that does it, because there's so much pressure to make it, and as you pointed out, so much pressure to make it young. You almost feel that if you haven't got a foot in the door by 19, 20, 21, then you're just not going to make it. And there's just so much pressure on these youngsters. And again, for Saru and for South Africa, it's fantastic to have so many talented players, matriculating every year and coming out of varsity cup and coming into academies. But it's an absolute minefield, because there's so much talent, and the guys are willing to do anything to make it, because it's this dream, and you think it's all sunshine and roses and pretty girls and fast cars and a lot of money, but it's not. The life of a professional rugby player is not great. It's shit. You have a lot of time off, but no one ever tells you. I had 24 operations in my career. No one ever tells you that. You have to rehab every time. There's only maybe 0.1% of us that can retire at 30 or 35 and live on that money for the rest of their lives. The rest of us, it's cool. You had a good time while it lasted. Hopefully you saved money. If you didn't, you got to go ask someone for a job. You got to beg, borrow, and steal.
And I like the brutality with which you speak with, because I know too many tragic stories. How many guys right now, because you're telling hard truths now. And one thing I know about sportsmen, and it's still in me a little bit, and I had no talent. Unfortunately, my ego has always been bigger than my talent. But it's how many guys actually listen to what you're saying? Because to be a sportsman, you got to have a bit of ego. You got to think you're the guy. Every guy, to make it, you got to think you're the guy. Now, when a guy comes and tells you hard truths, most sportsmen, in order to get where they are, not all, have always had yes men around them. What happens when they encounter somebody like you? Because you're telling them a life truth. Like, hey, your house getting repossessed is real. Nobody's going to tell you that whilst you're the guy paying for drinks at the club. But that's real. When you're 35 and you don't have a degree, that is real life, dude. And what happens when you tell them this? I'd love to know, are you mentoring young guys? Do you ever approach young guys? Or is it now a thing of you don't want to be that guy who's like, oh, here comes Paul again? Have you ever got that kind of response?
Yeah, no, not really. I'm very keen on mentoring youngsters, but it's kind of got to come from them first. I'm always willing to share, but again, but it's tough, because I can only talk about my experience. Their experience could be completely different. But I think the biggest thing, and what I'm loving about this conversation we're having, is that it needs to be spoken about. Because again, in professional sport, we call it the ostrich syndrome. You want to stick your head in the ground, and then when you put it out, you're hoping everything's going to be okay, and it's not. And I went through it as well. It's hell of a tough when you get in your investment portfolio statements and you don't understand anything. It's hell of a tough when you're going to buy a house and you don't really understand how the repo rate works, and what is this and what are these extra payments, and it's tough. And I think it certainly happened to me, and I'll laugh about it, because now my mates and I laugh about it whenever we see people like that. We call them bust a vibe, and it's easy to bust a vibe when you're young and you think I was just showing my age, and you're thinking buying a bottle of Jack Daniels in the club for $400 makes you cool. It doesn't. It makes you an idiot. because you could go buy it
Yeah.
for $150 and go drink at home.
Exactly.
And I think that's what guys don't realize. And again, there is definitely time for that. You know, I'm definitely not that guy that's gonna be a bummer and put it on fun. But we always just said, you know, if you're gonna do that, then make sure you're saving as well. And then just to go back to what Paul True always spoke to us about, is that you have to contribute and you have to grow as a person while you're playing rugby. Doesn't matter in what way. You know, everyone has different talents. Everyone learns in a different way. And something that I always said to the academy guys, and I've always said to our ladies as well, is if you didn't get a matric exemption, you don't have to go to university. You can go to Dublin. You can be a plumber. You can be an electrician. You can do anything. You know, sign up for business school. You can literally do anything. And in terms of that, I mean, I know the girls often really don't like they really don't like me because I give them a lot of extra homework. But I mean, they had to. I mean, I've got all their presentations on my laptop. When we start the year, they have to present certain things to us. They've got to present to us like a question that I don't think people ever ask about. Like, the girls have to tell us as individuals, what your greatest emotional need is. What's your greatest emotional need? Think about it. What's your plan?
That's awesome.
What do you want to do? I mean, that's what they have to do. You know, they run certain systems. So this year I put them all in charge of certain things. So we have people in charge of our breakdown sessions, our lineouts, our turnovers, and every time it's that session, then they present. I don't present. I'm tired of hearing my own voice. They're the ones that have to go and play. You know, I've played already. I don't need to know what to do. You know, I did it. I know what to do. They have to tell me whether they know what to do, and they have to come up with ideas. And I think my take on coaching is very different. I think people think I'm mad. My biggest goal is to actually become obsolete. You know, the less they need me, the better. It means I've done my job and I've upskilled them enough, and they can think for themselves. They can make decisions, and they can just come to me when they kind of get stuck. You know, I hate having to prompt people. You know, people must get on with their business. This is your job. You must be good at it.
Listen, what you've just said now, I'm probably going to need to record it and just sleep with it, like in, just so I can actually get my head together, because it's incredible stuff that you're doing. You know, I thought this would just be some rugby knucklehead. He's going to come round, tell me about how good he was, which he was unbelievably good. But you know what I appreciate is I've become jaded with our sports, our leadership in this country in general. But then even more so, because I'll be honest with you, I'm an idiot. I'm a knucklehead. I only care about sport. And I'm so disappointed in our leadership across the board. But then I come across guys like you, and I think to myself, I'm the idiot, because just because there's one bad, why do I never look for a Delport? And what you're saying is incredible. So to let me know that people like you exist in the system means there is hope, not only for our sports, but it means people like you exist in our country. And you may not realize this, but to me, it's phenomenal, because it means you take leadership seriously. This isn't something you get paid to do. This is something you take it seriously. And honestly, correct me if I'm wrong, you sound like if you could do it for free, right, and somehow live, it sounds like you do it the way you're talking about it, because I can see the passion in your eyes as you're talking about it.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, that's why I got into coaching. You know, the long story short, I was so lucky to have been involved with so many incredible people, and that's why Carl Brown's in it. That's why Frankie Horn's in it. That's why Neil Powell and Maurice Kuman and all the guys want to do it. We just want to give back. You know, there was so much intellectual property shared with us, and we just felt if we don't give that back and just try and help the next generation, you know, all of that's going to be lost, and then you have people trying to figure it out for themselves again. But I think the tough thing is, that and you said it earlier, you know, it doesn't matter how you talk about your experiences and your mistakes. I think the tough thing is that, you know, the people you coach, and it's tough for me as well, you know, looking at my little boy, he's going to do the dumb shit I did, and there's pretty much nothing we can do about it. You know, we can just be there to support them. We can be there to tell them it's going to be okay. We understand where you are, and like you said, we're just kind of hoping. We're never hoping for people to listen to everything we're saying, but we just want them to take it on board and just say, guys, this is real. You know, just be real, because like you're saying, I think the world we live in at the moment, it's difficult to find a lot of real. You know, you look on social media and things, it's all made up, it's all nonsense. No one lives like that. You know, and it's a breath of fresh air, and I can guarantee you there are plenty of people out there. Like, I mean, the Seven system is absolutely phenomenal. The guys coming out of there, I mean, the Springbok guys, I mean, look at the Siya Kolisi, what an absolutely wonderful human being. I mean, I just saw now he's been voted the most influential person in rugby, and I can understand why. I mean, Siya, I sent Siya a message before the Cape Town tournament, Sevens tournament, and I said, "Bud, I know you're busy. Would you mind chatting to the girls?" He said, "I'll go there now. I'll go now." He went to the hotel at 8 o'clock in the morning, sat. I mean, Siya lives in Claremont. He sat in that traffic to town just to go and speak to the girls. I mean, that's the type of person that guy is. So I think we are in very good hands going forward. I just think we need to let people like that fly, and we need to keep people like that around.
Hey, dude, you are real. I can't believe how long we've had you. You've been so gracious with your time. Paul, before you go, do you mind taking some questions from the public? I mean, you're going to come back because listen, you're real, bro. I just want to tell you something. You are real, man. You've hit me in there's some stuff that I wasn't ready to hear tonight. You've punched me in the stomach today in the most positive way possible. So, Paul, you're amazing, man. You're amazing. Do you mind taking some questions, and then we'll let you get back to that Bambino?
Perfect.
All right, Dave, hit us with some questions. The captain of Sachs himself goes, how's it, Paul? How do you manage being a new dad and coaching workload? Yeah, I think that's a great question.
Yeah, well, I must say COVID on many fronts has been devastating for us. But I think for me, just looking at it selfishly, it's been great to have been able to spend a bit of time with my little man. But my missus is an absolute saint, and she's a machine. She's made it very easy for me, and I must say as well, my the management that I'm lucky enough to work with have also made it very, very easy. They've been so understanding, and it's just incredible working with such competent people that take the lead and get on with it. So I think that's been way easier to manage. But again, it's a process. I'm definitely not doing everything right all the time. Definitely making mistakes. But I think that's how we learn.
I commend any wife who can live with a scrum off. I've always said that, because you guys in the bar king. You in the bar. Lucy Britt says, I had to get that in there.
Definitely.
Lucy Britt says, how do you think the Sevens women will do at the home World Cup in 2022?
Sure, Lucy, that's a good question. I think if we can keep this current group together, and obviously just increase our budget and increase our scope a bit, and just keep developing the fringe players and just bringing them through, I think we can do quite well. Again, it's going to be tough. As I mentioned earlier, it would have been fantastic for us to have qualified this year, and then obviously had the 2020-2021 series on the circuit, just to be playing at that level. So I think what's going to be tough for us is it's going to be tough to get enough tournaments at that level to prepare for that. But again, I've got no doubt that our ladies will step up, and I think as well it's going to make a big difference playing in South Africa, playing in front of our home crowd.
Sure. Yeah. Can't wait to back the ladies. That's going to be awesome. 2022. Hey, what a bumper year of rugby. COVID's been awful, but it's kind of worked out, because I get the Olympics, I get the British Lions, and then boom, I get the Women's World Cup. And it's Euros as well. Oh, my goodness.
Definitely.
Hey,
and I
right
think there's some exciting things coming as well. I mean, the World Rugby is coming out with a new global calendar quite soon, so I think things are going to be very interesting. It's going to be more than enough sport for us, but...
Ryan Jones says, Paul, how difficult do you think it is for Sevens players to transition back to 15, man? We've seen varying performances. Guys like Roscoe do well, but then others struggle.
Yeah, I think it's tough. They're two completely different games, and I think as the Sevens games developed, I think we chatted about it earlier, Mbulelo, that when we were at school, it was kind of like get the ball to the quick guy. There was no system, there was no structure, and Sevens there are a couple of basic principles that are very different to 15s, and even though the guys are supremely talented, it takes a while to get back into get back into 15s. And I think as well where the sevens guys often struggle, and again I obviously stand to be corrected because I don't know what's going on at the different unions, but the guys are often played out of position because they've seen as sevens players, they've seen us so versatile. They're kind of thrown into the deep end a lot of the time, and I think that's very tough. It's okay if you're thrown into the deep end at club rugby level, and you can get back to where you want it to be. But to be thrown into the deep end at Super Rugby level, it's a whole different kettle of fish, and I think that's what sometimes happens to the guys.
Could you maybe give me an example there? Do you feel like, is there somebody who you've thought, okay, he's not that position? Like, do you think, maybe you can give me an example. Do you have one for me? I mean, I don't want to put you in any sort of position, but is there a player where you thought, you guys...
Yes, I mean, absolutely. I mean, I think, no, it's perfect. I mean, and he wouldn't mind me saying he's one of my best mates, so I think I'm a bit biased. I mean, I look at someone like Dylan Sage. They played him at 12, they played him at 13, they're playing off the bench, he's often playing wing. I mean, for me, Dylan's an out-and-out 13. If Dylan got enough game time, Dylan would be my first choice 13 for the Springbok team. I mean, even though, I mean, Lucanio, I must say, is absolutely phenomenal, and he's done an incredible job. I mean, I've never played or worked with him, but I think Lucanio is the closest we've had to a Jacques Fourie, since that legend left. But I really think Dylan would give Lucanio, a real run for his money if he was given the time to play 13, because that's what people forget. You need a season of Super Rugby to adjust to that. You can't play 1 or 2 games and then you're back on the bench or you get dropped or it's this or that. That's what people don't understand. The guys, it takes you quite a while coming from 15s. The same as coming back from 15s to 7s. It takes the guys a while. You're often undercooked by the time you get to the tournament just because you haven't had enough time.
Sure. And I mean, I would imagine, as a sevens player, you're almost like a bee to honey sometimes, right? Is ruck time? Oh, I need to get there. If you need to play 13, is you're part of a system. Stay out there. I would imagine the sevens mentality is hawk to the ball, and that could obviously that you need to brainwash that out of somebody. I would imagine something as simple as that.
100%. You hit the nail on the head. Absolutely. I mean they're just different games, and like you said, I mean sevens, your role's so broad, so much is expected of you, and I think that's where the sevens guys often struggle. That they're doing so much. Whereas in 15s, essentially, you don't need to do that much. Your role's very defined. So it takes you a while to get out of that, to get in all the time and to just find yourself in the right position, make the right decisions. It's a process.
Got you. All right. Zach says, Paul, totally different games, but do you think sevens is going to take over rugby in SA and globally like T20 has in cricket? That's a simple answer for me. That's going to be a no. We spoke about it earlier. We're such a conservative society still, and just in terms of, I say to everybody, if you look at sports, it's all about money. It's about making money, and our 15th team makes us the money. I mean, it's pretty much that simple, and it's fantastic now. Rassi's done an incredible job there. The guys being world champs now. I mean, I don't know the figures, but the Lions tour is going to make obviously so much money. And then again, sevens, I think it's a great gateway, but sevens doesn't make us any money. We play on the World Series, everything's international. We only play one tournament in South Africa a year. So I mean, 15s will continue to be, to take front and center, I think, going forward. Cool. And let's give you the last question there, Paul. It's Mr. Ryan Jones. I don't know. Can you read it on your screen there?
No, but I think. There we go.
All right. Let me read it for you. Paul, okay. There are very few sevens games played at school level. Do you think we could see a permanent sevens format of rugby at grassroots level in the future? How important would it be for growth of sevens?
Yes, Ryan, that's a fantastic question and statement. I agree with you completely. I think sevens is the way to develop skill level, and I think it's the way to bring more people to rugby. I know a lot of, obviously getting on in the years now, and I chat to a lot of parents that don't want their kids to play rugby because their kid might end up being a prop or a hooker because they're scared of that type of contact. So I think sevens, magical way to get into the game. And obviously, you know, being a bit self-serving here to get more girls playing the game. Brilliant idea. I do think we don't play enough sevens rugby, but people like Marius Kuman have been fantastic. You know, Marius has the MS sevens that's now at Paul Gym. I mean, I stand to be corrected, but he does under 16, under 17, and under 18. And last year, I think there were over 80 teams there. I think there could have even been more from all over the place. You know, Craig Bloom flew down to come and play. And I really just think if we want to, you know, and I do think over the last few years it's gotten better. We've definitely closed the skill gap to the New Zealand guys, but I do think there's still a gap. You know, with our players coming out of school rugby in general, it's still a lot about patterns and systems and this and that. It's not enough about skill development and just learning the game and, you know, improving your game sense. So I think sevens can add a lot of value in terms of that.
Hey, Paul, before this becomes Joe Rogan's podcast and we make it into a Lord of the Rings episode, it has been absolutely. Can I be honest with you? I kind of thought this would be cool. Like, oh man, this guy's a legend. You know, I loved him as a player, but you've over-delivered more than. Geez, this has been insane. You have taken it to another level, bro. Seriously, to have guests like you and some of the content that you've spoken about isn't available really on the mainstream platforms because you've gone a little close to the edge, I'm sure, for some of what we might call the establishment. And because it's real. You've lived it. It's real. This life is real, guys. It's not all glamour. It's not all, but at least you're real. And people can tell real from fake. They can only deny you so long if you're real. So I want to commend you, brother, for being the character you are. And just so you know now, you are a friend of the show. So I fully expect if I send you a text and I need you to come on to give a hot take, we're going to need you. We're going to need Paul Delport because he is a prodigy from Sax and he's my guy. It has been an honor to have you on here, my brother.
Thank you so much for having me. I've really enjoyed our chat. It's been fantastic. And all you need to do is drop me a WhatsApp. I will be here.
And to you and Imbogoto, you know, they say, Watinta Bafaz, Watinta Imbogoto. So to you, all the best. And I cannot wait to support you guys. And whatever we can do for you, if you've got a message to communicate out, you have a platform here, you have a home here, as they say. So I cannot wait to engage with you further and support everything you're doing for the South African people, because these are our heroes. These ladies and sportsmen are our heroes, but in your context, these ladies are our heroes, especially for the next generation. So if we can support, this is not an empty promise, we will. So we are a platform and we will support the ladies, and it's not an empty promise. So we will have you back, and I know you'll have messages to communicate out. You have a home.
Definitely. Thank you so much for having me. It's been wonderful.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, Sax's finest, huh? Captain, like I bet he was captaining at home when they were doing the dishes. He was probably the captain. That's all he's ever known. I want to be the captain. Just phenomenal. Well, guys, slightly longer, but that was real. And he's about character. Paul Delport. Respect level was here. It's kind of gone through the roof now. Ladies and gentlemen, it's been a different ball game. Cannot wait to see you tomorrow. Have a great evening.